What happened to the Nets? The same thing that happens to all the other teams except for one every year. Not everyone can win a championship. It's really hard. They ran into a buzzsaw. They were missing one of their best players. And all I'm hearing about today is what to do with the Nets and why did they lose and what happened. And we'll get into the box scores and stuff with regard to trying to figure out how to move forward next year, because they do have some decisions to make, which are not going to be easy. But in my opinion, they're kind of already made. And I don't know how much there is to do here, because everyone wants this quick fix, but then everyone blames people from moving on too fast from stars and trading everywhere and buyout contracts and all the players moving around. But also they want everything to be solved right away and have a new team who hasn't played together at all win a championship immediately. It's just not how it's going to work. So let's jump into the box scores and try to figure out what happened. But more than that, try to figure out where the hell the Nets are supposed to go from here. Because what happened, happened. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you look at their regular season stats, they relied on Harden, Irving, and Durant to score roughly 70 points, a little more. They were missing Harden. They traded him. Let's just get that out of the way. We don't have to do that. I've done videos on it. Everyone has talked it to death. Once you already have decided to trade Harden, getting Simmons was an idea that made sense. Whether he plays or not, whether you bring him back, what you do with him, different conversation. But either way, you needed 70 points between your stars. Now you only have 2 stars. So you need those 2 stars to be at least scoring 60 combined and make up the 10 elsewhere with Seth Curry and whoever else. That's who you got in return. And all you ended up getting in the playoffs was 47 and 14, which is 60, but you're still missing those 10 points. And Aldridge went down. He wasn't playing, so that's another 13 out the window. And if you look at these box scores, they lose by 1, they lose by 7, they lose by 6, they lose by 4. That's the extra 10 points. So don't be absolutely shocked when they didn't win this series or the championship. Just on numbers alone, remove the defense from the Celtics, which is incredible. Just the numbers don't add up. If you had Simmons here, it would have been a different story. Even offensively, rag on him all you want. He still has always scored 15, almost 16, 17, 16, and 14 points per game. And honestly, throw the defense out the window. If you're just adding that, and replacing minutes of guys that aren't really scoring very much, the Blake Griffins, the Patty Mills, although Blake Griffin hit a couple shots. Hilarious that they threw Blake Griffin on the court because they had no one else to turn to. They had to try something. I get it. You're out of options at that point. And then they said during the broadcast that was the first time those 5 players had played together all year. All year. And then people are shocked that when you run into this defensive juggernaut that is the Celtics, that they sweep the Nets. Why is this? This shouldn't be that surprising. It really shouldn't. I feel like everyone is waking up and going, oh, wow, Kevin Durant couldn't rise to the occasion and Kyrie collapsed. I mean, first of all, Kyrie collapsing is the most normal thing that could possibly happen, and then blaming somebody else for it. Let's not be shocked by any of this kind of stuff. The Durant stuff was a little surprising. How he couldn't really rise to the occasion very often. We look at the box scores from the 4. That's the only thing you could get behind. But you know what? In game 4, he dropped 39 and still went 3 for 11 from 3. His shot was just not falling and he was bothered by the defense, but he still made sure to get 39. Kyrie only got 20. Seth Curry shouldn't be outscoring Kyrie Irving, probably. So, in any case, why are we so quick to blame the Nets? First of all these games were close.
Jaylen Brown.
All very close. Autoplay. Killer. They didn't get blown out ever. If they lose this series in 6 games, is there still panic? Are we still trying to figure out what's the problem with KD? It's like there is no problem. They lost the series. I was thinking back to a defensive team that had a similar momentum to the Celtics. They're blowing out everybody in terms of statistics over the last 10 years or so. But if you go back to the 2004 Pistons, they had this kind of run where it was like, oh, but they don't have Tatum is absolutely a superstar, but it just feels like that, driven by the defense. Some of the teams they're playing against might have more star power. So I wanted to go through and see Well, who are the teams they knocked off? And at the time, were we ragging on them completely? Maybe we were, but it was nonsense. And that's what I'm trying to prove here, is that the ragging on the Nets is going to be nonsense eventually, right? So you look at this Bucks roster, that series went 4-1. Bucks, not great, but they were fine. They had Michael Redd. He was a good scorer. Tim Thomas. I mean, this is a series that Detroit should have won and did. Okay, so let's knock that one off the list. But you go to the New Jersey series, Nets over again, by the way. This team was really good. Jason Kidd, Richard Jefferson, Kerry Kittles, Kenyon Martin. This team, Alonzo Mourning, old, but hey, you know, he was there. Brian Scal, look at that. Brandon Armstrong. Hubie Davis. What a fun team. Nice. In any case, this is a really good team. This series went 7 games. Would we feel differently about the Nets' legacy if they got swept to Detroit? I don't think so. Autoplay. Hate to see it. I don't think we would feel any different about the Nets. So, to me, you win the series, you lose the series, you get swept, you don't. As long as the games were all close, it's fine. If you were getting blown out consistently in these games, I'd be singing a different tune. You'd have to make some changes. That is not acceptable. But when you lose a couple of games against a hard-nosed defensive team by a few points, when you're missing an all-star player, this just isn't that surprising to me. I mean, move on to the next series with the Pistons. They face Indiana, the #1 seed. This Indiana team had aspirations to go out there and win. Meta World Peace, dominating. Jermaine O'Neal, Al Harrington, Reggie Miller's still there. Jamal Tinsley, I liked him back in the day. I don't know what really happened. When he was young, he was pretty good. Stats don't look good, but he played a while in the league, I guess.
That's what a leader does. It's not
the autoplay. In any case, this team was very good. 61-21. They lose in 6 games. Do we have any feelings about this Pacers team? No. Would we have any feelings about this Pacers team if they got swept? No. And if the games were close, would it matter? It would matter better than losing by 20. You move on to the finals, and this is where it really gets interesting. Look, we're comparing the first round to the finals. I get it, but this Nets team, if healthy, wouldn't have been facing the Celtics in the first round. So we do kind of criticize the Lakers for losing in this series. And that's because they lost 4-1, and they had a ton of star power, and they were coming off of championships already. You can't really say that same thing about the Nets. But even if you look back at these games, the finals games, let's see how far we can get here. Conference finals, NBA finals. Pistons beat the Lakers by 12. Lakers only scored 75 points. I mean, it's a different era, but still. Lakers win in their only game in overtime. Pistons beat them by 20. Lakers only scored 68 points. Pistons beat them by 8. This game was much closer. Pistons beat them by 13. Even this, when we do go back and punish the Lakers for losing this series, the end of what people consider this run from Shaq and Kobe and all that stuff and this incredible victory that the Pistons had, even this one, the games weren't as close as this Nets-Celtics series. They were getting stomped on, and they deserve to be criticized for that. And they were healthy, by the way. That's another story. But when the Nets lose by a couple points, one possession here or there, and they're missing an all-star, I can't get on them. I can't start wondering what went wrong. Do we blame this guy? Do we blame that guy? Do we change coaches? It's like, no. You are committed here. This already is what it is. By the way, Shaq is just great. I mean, incredible. Look what he did in that game they won. Actually, it was Kobe, 33. This was the Karl Malone Lakers team that just absolutely imploded. So yeah, if the Nets really did this and only scored 68 and lost by 20 to the Celtics, or even if you call it 88, whatever it is, none of that happened. They looked fine. They just didn't look great. And we knew this team wasn't great to begin with. Why is any of this surprising? So we look towards next year. That's where it really gets interesting, because you look at this. Kyrie has a player option. This is the problem, right? Kyrie's player option kicks in next year. He's going to turn it down. I mean, there's no real reason he wouldn't. He's healthy. He's going to get a better contract from somebody. Now, the initial question you have to ask yourself is, after imploding the way he has, and after being the diva that he is constantly, but also you landed him somehow, and that helped you get Durant. So do you want to pay this guy, I don't know what it's going to be, 4 years, 175 million. I don't know. It's a made up number, but whatever it is, if they give him the 5th year, 200 million more, what is that going to look like? How are you feeling about that? But I don't think they have a choice. I mean, what are they supposed to do? First of all, if Durant tells them that they're going to pay for Kyrie Irving, guess what they're going to do? They're going to pay for Kyrie Irving. There's nothing they can do about it. They are already pot committed to this whole thing. What are you going to do? You can't trade him. Who's going to give you equal value back for him? I don't see anybody being able to do that. The only thing you could do is a sign and trade because it's a player option, right? So if he turns down the player option, he's a free agent. If you wanted to work out a sign and trade so that he could get the extra year with the bird rights that the Nets have, then someone would have to want to give him 5 years. I don't know if anyone wants to do that. And what would you be getting in return that makes it worth your while? Nothing, because the person has to pay him the contract. So you'd be getting very little. It doesn't make much sense. If you let him walk, then what? Then you have some money, but by the way, not a lot. They're already over the cap. And who are you replacing him with? You still have to have championship aspirations. Get swept in the first round or not. You have to come back next year saying, we have Simmons. We're going to be doing something a little different than last year. We have more depth. How are we going to fill in the little pieces around? But if you blow it up now and let Kyrie walk, I looked up the free agents for next year. Who the hell do you think you're signing that's going to replace that gap? Zach LaVine? I guess. I mean, I don't know if you're going to land him. You're going to pay him just as much, and that's a real gamble. Unless you can do a sign and trade flip with the Bulls or something where you sign and trade both. That sounds real scary to me, to let Kyrie potentially walk and just hope you replace him with one guy on this list. I mean, Beal, I guess. Those are the only two. There's no one there's no one else on this list that could possibly fill those shoes. And even those two probably aren't Kyrie Irving, right? But they could get you close enough. I get that. If you could pull off a sign and trade with him to one of these teams and get Beal and LaVine in return and extend them, fine. But the truth is that Durant is not going to want that to happen in all likelihood. He's friends with Kyrie. They've had this relationship. If they survived this year, I don't know what they're not going to survive. And you haven't even seen the team with Simmons yet. You got rid of Harden because you knew that that was a headache and you saw an opportunity to get out from under it. And you realized, hey, we have enough scoring, by the way. It's not the problem. Even in these games, it wasn't the problem. They scored 114. They scored 107. They scored 103. They scored 112. Yeah, maybe they should be in the 120s, but they would be if they had Ben Simmons in there. He improves their offense. I don't care what anybody says. He does. He's better than Bruce Brown for the most part. Bruce Brown should be a bench player, right? He's better than 18 minutes of the corpse of Blake Griffin. And I like Blake Griffin. Goran Dragic. He's out there. He's handling the ball, so he's putting up stats. He's fine. He's a bench player. Patty Mills. None of these guys are Ben Simmons. And even if he's just screening and running the rim, that's fine. And the defense makes you so much better that your offense is inevitably better because you get more stops, you get out in transition, and let Kyrie and Durant do their thing. So I really think that just missing him, I mean, people are memeing on him because of the way he dresses on the sidelines. Like, okay, whatever. And if you want to get on him for the back injury, look, none of us have any idea what kind of shape he's in. None of us know where this comes from. Is he quitting on team? None of us know, but he's already there. There's nothing you're going to do. What, are you going to trade him for somebody? It was insane enough for Philly to be able to trade him and let alone get James Harden, who also people don't really want. So I don't know what outs you have. And the crux of it all is that Durant is going to want Kyrie to stay and get paid. And they're going to want to run it back and see what they can do with Simmons. And that's kind of all they can do. I don't think you have an out here. I know you don't want to pay him, but you have to think about, can I win a championship with him? Even if it's unlikely and even if there's a lot of chances that it blows up. Yes, he's proven that you can. So has Durant. Can I win a championship without him? The only way I could see it is if you can guarantee land Beal and guarantee land LaVine. And I can't even guarantee. I mean, LaVine is not nearly as healthy as Kyrie Irving. Same goes for Brad Beal. I think there are question marks as to whether these guys want to play together, whether it will work together. At least you know that offensively, Kyrie and Durant can work together. They need better role players around them, and they didn't have their best one. I mean, calling Ben Simmons a role player is silly, but he fills the role that no one on this team wanted to do, right? And by the way, if you undo this trade and keep Harden on the Nets, they're not winning anyway. They traded Harden because they needed all the, not small ball stuff, but the dirty lunch pail stuff that Ben Simmons will do. Harden wasn't doing any of that. They had more than enough offense. If anything, it would have just taken away from Kyrie and Durant. Now, you could say that Harden could have got hot, but he hasn't done that for his team either. So I don't think that would have been the case. I think at some point, and I know I'm making this about the Nets because the Celtics are moving on, and I'm sure we'll talk about them more. They just played a great defensive series. What are you going to do? You go back to when Michael Jordan lost to the Pistons, no one really talks about it, which is nonsense because we cite that he's undefeated in the finals. Meanwhile, is it better to make the finals and lose, or is it better to not make the finals? I'd rather make the finals and lose, so feather in the cap to the LeBron stands out there, myself included. But it doesn't matter to me. This is an incomplete team that struggled. Their best player uncharacteristically struggled shooting the basketball against double teams from the best defensive team we've seen in a while. And we know that every now and then, the Dirk Mavericks are the same thing. They beat the Heatles. What are you going to do about it? This happens. Sometimes a team catches fire. Only one team can win. Is it different to lose in the first round in the finals? It is. Is it different to get swept and go to 6 games? It is. But context matters to me. You can't say that this is the same as the Lakers losing to the Pistons when they got blown out, couldn't crack 70 points, and lost by 20. The Nets lost it by a handful of possessions of shots that normally go down for Durant and didn't go down. If Ben Simmons is in the series, do they win? I don't know. Probably not. Is it a different series? Probably. Do they win a couple of games, and are we not doing any of this posturing stuff? Probably. So, I just don't think there is anything to be done here. I saw an interesting statistic about Durant's stats. Let me try to find it here. When he's guarded by Tatum specifically in this series, which is hard to track, admittedly. I don't put too much stock into this kind of stuff, but 15 points, 4 for 17 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and 9 turnovers. Those are Durant stats when guarded by Tatum in this series. If he's going to do that, none of it matters. I get on Kyrie more than anybody. I planned on kind of doing this video and ripping on Kyrie because he just had a terrible game. And then I realized, you know what? If Durant is going to struggle for 3 out of the 4 games, and he didn't even shoot well in the 4th despite scoring 39, he went 3 for 11 from 3. I mean, we'll forgive that because he did well elsewhere. If he's not going to make the shots he normally makes, even against tough defense and double teams, that's the horse you rode in on. You're not getting rid of Durant. What are we talking about? Is he going down a different path? Is this has he peaked? I don't know. None of that matters. You're committed to this team. At a certain point, you can't just keep swapping people out for lesser items. You already almost did that with the Harden thing, but you got back Drummond and Curry, so you were willing to do it, plus picks and all that kind of stuff. You can't keep doing that. You can't keep trading, what if we get rid of Kyrie and replace him with Zach LaVine? Okay, this isn't hating on Zach LaVine, but he's not as good offensively as Kyrie Irving, and I don't think he's bringing that much more defensively to the table. Athleticism, sure. Health-wise, bad. So you can't just keep swapping it over and over because you didn't get the result you didn't like in 4 games and less than 4 games. Call it, I don't know, if 20 possessions go differently throughout the series, maybe less, 10 possessions go differently throughout the series, this is still ongoing. I'm not even doing the video. So you got to run it back. I mean, at a certain point, you got to stick to your guns. This is a team that's pretty good. They ran into a buzzsaw, and that's going to happen. A defensive buzzsaw that can stop one of the best scorers we've ever seen, which has happened before. It happened to LeBron. It happens. It happened to Jordan. It happened to Kobe. It happened to Shaq. We don't take away from their entire career when it's all said and done. Let's not be prisoners of the moment. The only decision is what to do with Kyrie, and there really isn't any decision. Unless you get this miracle offer from the Wizards or the Bulls saying, we're actually not looking good on our contract extensions. How are things over there? Are you interested in some kind of swap? If they pick up the phone, fine, but you still got to sell that to Kevin Durant, and I don't see it happening. So Kyrie's going to be here. This is the way it's going to go. Durant is going to be here. They're both going to make a ton of money. They're both going to have insane expectations. And there's a real chance they never win a championship because, you know what? A lot of people don't win championships. most of the teams don't end up winning. There's a lot of good teams in the NBA and a lot of young talent that's only getting better. Is Ben Simmons going to fix this? Maybe. I think if you put these stats into the series, it's different. But that doesn't impact anything. You made your move. You've made multiple moves. You had the Kyrie Durant thing and you thought that was enough. Then you went and got Harden. That was the move. That was the bullet in your chamber. And then you realized, oh wait, I snuck an extra bullet in here. Incredible. So you take that bullet out, it's faulty, you throw it to the side, you get the other bullet in. You got the Simmons trade. Bad luck. He couldn't play this year. What are you going to do? You're done now. There's not really any more bullets. I don't see how you can blow this up successfully. I don't see how you can get closer to a championship. You can replace pieces. By the way, you look at their stats again. I don't know if I have it up here, but let's look at game 4, I think is the one where he played. Maybe he didn't. Didn't play the whole series, huh? Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge doesn't really play here. And same thing with Blake Griffin, right? Everyone complained so much and continues to complain when buyout season happens. And these superstar teams get these players for free. And then no one wants to go back and say, you know what? It didn't matter. LaMarcus Aldridge came out of retirement. Great. He's signing with the Nets. What, another all-star they need? He didn't even crack the rotation in the playoffs. And Blake Griffin came in as an emergency situation to try to get a spark. Stop. Just stop. So many people hate the buyout season. I get it. We can rework it. We can make it better. I'm with you. But it's not deciding championships 9 times out of 10. More. 99 times out of 100. More. It's fine. It's all good. No one complained when Goran Dragic went to the Nets for free. Because you know what happened? They still get swept because he's a bench guard. It's all good. You're not getting an all-star for free. It's never happening. So don't worry too much about that because next year, it's just going to happen again. You're just recycling guys at the end of benches. Nick Claxton ended up being way more important to this team than Blake Griffin ever was, than Andre Drummond ever was, who came over in a trade that people were like, they threw in Andre Drummond. He's amazing. He's good. Fine. He played a role. But Claxton was the guy who was there all along that ended up playing the meaningful minutes and the best minutes for them at that spot. So they'll tinker with the role players around them. It'll look like a slightly different team, no different than when the LeBron Cavs ended up getting Dwayne Wade and then they ship him out and instead they get Kyle Korver and, you know, whoever those people are. They all rotate around, but the core has to kind of remain with Durant and Kyrie, and there's nothing to be done with Ben Simmons until you see him play. So it's disappointing. You're allowed to be disappointed in a loss, for sure. You're allowed to feel however you want, frankly. But to think that there are changes needed here, the people that are talking about Steve Nash and what kind of job he did and whether he needs to be replaced, what the hell are we talking about? He didn't have a full team. These guys have never played together. Game 4 of a playoff series, one of their best runs came with 5 guys that had never seen the court together. You got to give it a minute, and sometimes it's painful. And when LeBron loses to the Mavs and then comes back and wins championships later, he probably wouldn't have done it if he didn't lose to the Mavs, right? When Jordan loses to the Pistons and comes, or better, loses to Shaq in 1994-95 in between the titles, which no one seems to talk about, but Shaq is the king. And then he comes back, fixes it, and they win again. This is what happens. You can't just win right away. You could point fun at him. We can make fun of Kyrie all we want. I'm down. He choked. And his responses to things they're just Kyrie Irving. This is just what he is. But to think he's going to be able to go somewhere else, I just don't even see why the Bulls or the Wizards would want to take that on unless their hand was truly, truly forced. Because paying this guy 5 years, $200 million is going to be painful for everybody, but it's less painful for the Nets because you have Durant telling you to do it and you can't do anything about that. You have to make him happy. So this is probably how this is going to go. You're going to have the same coach. You're going to have the same 3 stars, and you're going to bring back all the role players you can. You'll bring back Seth. You'll see what happens with Drummond. Who cares? You'll bring back Claxton. The rest of the guys can be replaced, and then we'll go to the buyout market, and people will be like, oh my God, they got Enes Kanter for free, or whoever it is. Just first person I thought of. Terrible example. And then what? they'll be a role player and they'll either win the championship and people will continue to complain, or they'll lose and people will forget about all the things they were saying before. You can't be mad at the super teams when they form up and then not also realize, oh, well, they lose a lot. Okay, so this is a good thing for the league. They'll come back next year. They have no choice but what to do. They're going to get Kyrie back, I'm sure. And not that long ago, when Kyrie was playing every other game and just started to ramp up and was playing all the time, he was scoring like 35 points a game and everyone was gushing about how talented he was. So you have to just view both sides. His story is hilarious to me, honestly. We are so quick to praise him for being the most skilled and are so quick to bring him all the way down when he doesn't have a great series against the best defensive team in the last decade, maybe. And the truth is just somewhere in the middle. And you can't always fix these things because it's like I said, it's like a 10, 20 possession sample size of what went wrong. So don't worry too much about it. We're going to see what happens with this team next year. And what I should have done probably is made this more about the Celtics defense because they deserved it. They had the Defensive Player of the Year, which was really a team award because Tatum has been, I mean, not just as good as Smart, but very, very important to them defensively. Jaylen Brown is good. And having Rob Williams back makes him massive, massive difference. So they're probably not done. I'll be intrigued to see what they do against Giannis because that's like the undefendable thing. But so is Durant, and they made it work. Who knows? So I should have made this video probably more Celtics-centric, but I just kept hearing stuff all day since they lost, ragging on the Nets. What do they do? How do they fix it? How do they change this? You don't change it. You just need more time, and you need more games, and not everyone can win. It's just the way it is. But good news, we got more picks because it's ongoing. The playoffs rolls on. So who are we taking, you ask? Good question. Got 5 units on the line. First one, 4-player prop. Now, unfortunately, in this Heat-Hawks game, and if you're watching this later, then I guess you'll see how we did. We are currently up 47.4 units on the year, which is pretty good. Had a good night last night with the Mavs and baseball parlay. Always follow at Mike Mush Sports for more picks if you don't get them here on the videos. But you get them here today. First one is a 4-player prop, but Jimmy Butler was ruled out of the Heat-Hawks game with knee soreness. Not good. Not good. Don't have a lot of details on that, but he was in one of our props, so the odds are going to change. I had Desmond Bane, 15-plus points tonight against the Wolves. Patrick Beverley to get at least 1 steal against the Grizzlies. Bam Adebayo, 2 assists or more against the Hawks. And then I had Jimmy Butler in there at 4+ assists. He won't be there. If you want to jack up the Bam Adebayo assists, I think he's going to have to handle the ball a lot. You could get some Tyler Hero props, but you're probably priced out of those. Anyway, with Butler in there, I got it at -119, and I have 2 units on it. We're going to have to end up voiding the Butler piece of it, and I'm going to have terrible odds, but hopefully it'll hit anyway. So that's a tough one to keep track of. I already had the bet in, and it's recorded, and we record all of our bets here so we can keep track. But if you want to replace that with more Bam assists or some other prop from one of the Heat guards, maybe Strus to hit some threes, or the Gabe Vincents of the world, I don't know what you want to do there. But I like Bane 15+ points, Beverly to get a steal, and Bam assists numbers parlayed in some kind of scenario. So that's my first pick, even though it's not able to be as specific as possible. My other basketball one is for tomorrow, which is the Bucks and Bulls. Now, we talked about Levine. He's in COVID protocol, might not play. I love the Bucks anyway, but Bucks -2.5. Bucks to win the first half, and then parlay it with the Warriors -2.5 against the Nuggets. They're not going to lose that game again. Insane that they lost to a team that shot like 60% from 3. This is not going to happen. Bucks and Warriors roll. I like Bucks -2.5 for the game. Bucks to win the first half, and Warriors -2.5. That comes out to -114. We got 2 units on that puppy. And we're sprinkling in some baseball ones just for fun. I know it's a basketball video, but all the money's green. Rockies, Phillies over 8. Mets, Cardinals over 7. And Blue Jays money line against the Red Sox. Half a unit on that one gives you +454 odds. Love that tonight. Recording it on a Tuesday if you're watching. If you're not, I mean, hit that noti bell, subscribe. You better come back and join us live, join the chat, do all the stuff. You got to get these bets in. We're red hot. The other baseball bet, another half unit, which brings us to our 5 units total. Rockies, Phillies over 8, doubling up on that one. Really like it. I don't know why that line is 8 for 2 teams that score in a bandbox that is Philadelphia. And then Mariners money line against the Rays, plus 304 for just those two. And we get half a unit on that. But I really like the basketball ones. We've been hot there. Baseball's been solid too. Gonna have a fantasy baseball video coming soon, but so much basketball stuff to talk about. Hard to fill it all up. We'll get back in with UFC content when the next pay-per-view rolls around. Maybe we'll do some videos on that. Plenty more. Trying to do some throwback stuff, going back to old series. I enjoyed taking a quick stroll down memory lane for the 2004 playoffs during this one. We'll do some more of that. Lots of stuff on the way. Subscribe to the channel. Follow at Mike Mush Sports, Twitter and Instagram. More picks and analysis and me crying over losses over there. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.